In our bank account, we have $3,095.35. And in the PayPal, we have approximately 1,500, real close to 1,500.
Okay.
The only expenditures looks like this month is the catering for the Beekeeping 101.
Right. Treasurers and secretary said anything in? Our treasurer, our secretary were able to be here. Our event coordinator, we have update or insight to get ready for the Honeybee Festival. That's the next event.
We are in fact getting ready for the Honeybee Festival. Still trying to raise some money. It's been a little bit slow going, except for a couple of nice donations that came in. And we are, now there's conversations going on about, picking up, cleaning up, that kind of thing. Town of Palisade is kind of looking for us maybe to help, make sure that everything's cleaned up and there's no trash or all of that taken care of, and a lot of, acknowledging that we appreciate the town of Palisade as well. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that there's gonna be a lot of people coming, there's a lot of people asking anytime they run into us, it's like, when is it, how is it, all that. So I think that our numbers will be greater than last year.
How many people here are thinking about manning our booth, our association booth? So it is on April 13th, which is a Saturday, and I believe it's around 9 to about 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that.
It's gonna be a little bit longer than.
Okay.
What was that?
10 to 4.
That's, yes.
Yeah. So I think we just show up a little early.
We show up
set our
early, so
booth
you're
and
saying
everything,
it's
right?
all-
So I'm just trying to
Yeah.
figure out that piece of it. So it's a one-day event.
Are they still
Sorry, I'm
illegal-
sorry, could I
are these
see
still
hands one more
illegal in
time?
Palisade?
Yeah.
Valid question.
We still need to wait. She
I'm
needs to
sorry,
see-
could I
show of
see
of
hands
people
one more time? I didn't
So she
quite
can
catch it.
count people.
Okay, great.
CSU.
No, this is out in the town of Palisade.
Okay.
It's actually in the street where they have the farmer's market.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Gene, do you want them to come talk to you too about signing up? and let you
Yeah,
know
that
what
would
it
be
is?
great. Just
So
have your
after the
contact
meeting,
info.
if those of you that want to be a part, so they know kind of, and we need to coordinate that as we set up that tent, and there's plenty of space for everybody. There will be an observation hive there, and that is a big draw. And also information, and so there'll be a different hive that is not just observation hive, but other tools and other educational materials there that you'll be able to share. And also, if you have honey and you'd like to sell, we let the club sell your honey app, that if you're gonna help us out, you can sell honey there.
I should have said that before I asked how many people want to come to, right? So-
You might have more people
Yeah, exactly.
wanting help.
So, yeah, just see us afterwards.
So whatever you bring a honey wise, you usually sell it all. It is so well attended. Usually the first festival of the season, and so there are very many people there.
Bring people from everywhere.
Okay, our vice president, do you have anything?
No.
And then Doug, media officer, he's gonna help us out with a couple things, revamping of the website, so that's why we have this up there. Doug? Can you all see up there, or do I need to move this box? You all right?
Yep.
All right, okay. Down low even? Okay.
I'm trying to run 3 different things at once. so-
Breaking into Nassau.
Yes, that's what I'm working on.
Changing the trajectory of the satellite.
Yep. Okay.
So I want to thank everybody who actually responded to the survey about the website. So there were a few things that popped up that suggestions for changes. So one of the first ones was being not able to find easily the meeting minutes and the recordings for the Zoom. So if you look now here, I've got a new tab here called Meeting Information. And under that, That's gonna give our normal meetings. We've got our Q&A thing, and then down here at the bottom, very big and bold, meeting minutes and the Zoom recordings. So they should be really, really easy to find.
Thank you.
The other one was somebody was asking about, every month we go through and we do a, what you should be doing, but there's people asking for a future reference. So if you look, we have another one there that says calendar. So what I did is I went out and found a whole bunch of different places that had a bee calendar and kind of matched a bunch of different things together. So we've got information here about what's going on in the hive at the times, things, these are all suggestions because everything can be different. So things you could be doing at that time of the month under as a beekeeper. And then as we start getting into spring and summer, at the very bottom here, there's a section here
In fact, we even have 70 degrees coming next week. Yay. When 70 degrees happens in the Grand Valley, all kinds of forage takes place. Trees start popping. There's already a lot of these flowering trees, the buds are swelling, if you've noticed. The globe willows are already started. You can, in some parts of the valley, that light green hue is already taking place in the globe willows, and that's usually the first sign of the best forage, especially along the lines of the pollen, the first pollens that take place in the valley. So spring inspection, you're thinking about doing it, what's next? When you do the spring inspection, long before you even open the lid, the first thing you want to do is what's outside. You can tell a lot about what's going on inside, what's going outside. What's happening outside will tell you a lot of what's happening inside before you even open the lid. What are some of the things you want to look for? Anybody want to throw something out there? What do you want to look for outside the hive, especially at the entrance, in front of the entrance?
Dead bees. Dead bees.
Dead bees. That's not a good one there. We're talking about dead bees, but that's true. Somebody else said something else? What's coming in? Yeah. What are the bees bringing in? So that's, you can tell that what they're bringing in, and they should be bringing in 4 things in this time of year.
Pollen, water.
Pollen,
Nectar.
water, nectar, and
Propolis.
So those And you can see each one of those things coming in. If you see pollen coming in, what does that mean?
Babies.
You have larvae. Because without, if they don't have anything to feed, they're not bringing in pollen. And it's pretty easy to tell the heavy bees that are flying. What I mean by heavy, a bee has ability to increase its honey stomach or its honey crop up to 4 times, usually a 2 or 3 times its normal size. And when they have increased that load of nectar, that heavy bee, you can watch them fly. They fly like they're drunk, and oftentimes barely hit the landing board. Sometimes they hit the ground, then have to fly up again. A bee that's flying light, she'll go right in the door. She don't even miss a step, just boom. But a bee flying heavy, that's how you can know they're carrying something in their crop. Whether it's water, nectar is the heaviest thing they'll carry. Pollen on their pollen baskets, on their hind legs, or propolis. So you carry propolis in the same place. And where's propolis going to be a little bit darker color. You see a bee carrying, wow, that's really dark pollen. It's probably propolis instead of pollen. Pollen, there's all kinds of different colors coming in. Dandelions already throwing. There's a number of different sources right now. So you see that coming in. The other thing that you want to look for in the front of the beehive is, as was said, is there dead bees? And then there's going to be a few, because the winter nest now is coming to an end. And those bees have had to stay alive for 5 months. And that 5-month-old bee now is coming to the end of her life, and they're going to expire. But they're going to do their best to raise that spring nest. And so as they are expiring, you're going to find a few out front. Now, what you don't want to see outside the hive is chalk brood or a lot of larvae. Now, there can be a few, just those white larvae that's out front, and that's also a good sign if you have bees that have that mite-resistant trait. That is what is one of their traits if you have a Varroa sensitive hygiene. That VSH is what they call that, Varroa sensitive hygiene. The Varroa sensitive hygiene is uncapping and capping. Oftentimes they'll uncap that larvae and remove that larvae with infested mites, the juvenile mites, and they drag it out the door. And so that is part of a Varroa sensitive trait, and that is a good thing. If there's too many of them, and if they're old and shriveled up, or if you've never seen chalk brood, I'll show you here in just a second. But anyway, so you're looking out front, is there any bees crawling? That is not a good sign. That is a sign of viral issues. When a bee is not able to fly, it has one of 3 viruses that are paralyzed. It's a paralysis type of virus that paralyzes their wing muscles. They'll fly a little bit and then they're unable to fly, land on the ground. And invariably there's going to be a couple, but if you can count out 10 feet, 15 feet in a fanning direction, if you count 5, 6 of bees that are walking, that is a high mite load and a high virus load. So outside the hive, there's a lot of things that you can be seeing, you can be looking for. Before you open it up, spend a little bit of time, see if the bees are healthy, if the activity is well, if it's good, and then you begin. The next thing is, again, what they're bringing in. Here you see pollen on those baskets, and that's exciting. Okay, you want to light a smoker. If you have a smoker, I love the smell of, that's his smoker, so it's his fault. Okay. And there are a lot of people say, well, what type of smoker is good? There's a lot of good ones. This is Tracy. I use the same one with this rubber baffle. It'll outlast your canvas or the other type of bellows 10 to 1. So and these are Man Lake, easy to get. But get a good smoker. Smoker fuel doesn't matter except for you want cool smoke. However you light your smoker, whatever type of smoke that you're going to be producing, you want cool smoke. And how you can tell is you put your hand at least 6, 8 inches away, and as you're smoking it, if it's too hot for your hand to be that close, it's too hot to be smoking your bees. So they will scatter just because of the heat. And you can damage wings real easy. You can damage their ability, their sensory organs. There's a number of things if you do too much smoke, too much hot smoke. You don't have to smoke a lot. Go ahead.
And if your smoker is too hot, the easiest thing to do is go get a handful of just regular old green grass, throw it in on top of the fire in your smoker. We put the lid back on, and when you puff that grass as it's drying out and the moisture's coming out, it'll cool down that smoke.
A number of different things along those lines.
Oh, there's two or three different sizes of smokers, big ones, little ones. For people like Jason and me, they're doing 20, 30, 40, 100 hives in a day. The big tall one, you don't have to reload it as quick. If you got 2 or 3 hives, I'd recommend the smaller one just because I bought a great big one. My first one, I had 2 hives, and just about the time it got going good, well, then I was done with my hive inspections and I had this much burning stuff in it. And it was like, for no reason. So I would get the smaller one, just depending on how many hives you have.
And it's real easy to douse it. A wooden plug, any kind of wooden plug, you put into the end of it, and within just a couple of minutes, it'll kill the fire, kill the smoke. And so you can use whatever fuel you have. Depends on the fuel. We're going to pellets now, the pellets that are made just for smokers. For decades, we used burlap because it was readily available. It's hard to get burlap now. So smoker pellets they stay lit and they produce a cool smoke. Anyway, a lot of different areas of smoking. If you got it, but you need to make sure that you begin. And I begin by a puff in the entrance. Before I even open the lid, I'll puff one in the entrance, and that smoke will rise inside. A lot of people say, well, what does the smoke do? Why does the smoke work? One thing I do know, there's couple of different ideas and opinions. What I do know is it interrupts pheromone. Bees communicate by their pheromone. A queen mandibular pheromone is the one pheromone that's throughout the hive. That's how a honeybee knows that hive belongs to her. And alarm pheromones, they also have different communication pheromones that they use in different places on their body that produces those pheromones. Smoke interrupts that. Instantly, it interrupts the entire hive. And that's why the bees no longer are acting aggressive. And that's what it'll knock them down. So as you open the lid, they seem like they're really agitated. A few puffs of smoke, wait a little bit, and they'll settle down. So a couple of things that you are going to do, you need to know what your objectives are. Your objective is making sure your queen right. You have a queen and she's laying. And this is what you're looking for. Eggs. And you're looking for eggs that are in the center. That is a good queen. Most of them are centered, but some of these are off to the side. When a queen gets older, she's going to start laying to the side of the cell. That's a sign of an older queen, and this queen will not make it through the entire summer. They will supersede her because she's starting to lay to the side. Most of your eggs need to be centered. Now there might be a few that's a couple that are off, but if you're seeing more and more to the side like that, that is a very good sign that you're dealing with an older queen, and she'll start doing that as she gets older. So you're looking for eggs. And this is the great thing. If you found eggs, you don't have to find the queen because you found what the queen is doing. If you see one of these, that is because it's in the center of your comb, in the center of the frame, instead of the bottom of the frame. And that's not 100%, but usually that means a supersedure cell. A supersedure cell means that they have decided we need another queen. And they're developing and they're producing another queen. I've seen swarm cells in the middle, I've seen supersedure cells at the bottom. So that's not, but that's usually the case in the middle, what I've found, supersedure cell. A lot of people say, well, I don't, or they find a swarm cell, or this time of year, if you find some cells, don't squish them. They know what they need. This time of year, now, another month or two from now, when they're working on swarm cells, we'll talk about that. But right now, they're in need of another queen. And that's their last hope. So they know what they're doing. Go ahead and leave that supersedure cell this time of year into April. Now, near the end of April, into May, when that swarming begins, that's a different story. You can slow down the swarming by squishing queen cells. But if they're superseding her, that means she's failing or there's a problem. And you need to go ahead and let them be bees and do what bees do. And then you can monitor that. When you see a supersedure cell, I would do my best to find the queen, get a visual on her, see what she looks like. Oftentimes, if she has a damaged leg, they'll supersede her. She's laying fine. She looks good. But if there's any kind of defect, oftentimes they sense that, they know that, the superseder, an old queen, they're superseding her. She's at the end of her cycle, whatever it might be. Well, there's many different reasons why they'd be doing that, but go ahead and right now, this time of year, leave that cell, let it hatch, let them do what they're going to do.
Jason,
Yep.
if you saw that in your hive, how long from now would you estimate the queen's gonna hatch?
Okay, that's a great question because the life or the cycle of a queen from egg to hatch is 16 days.
That's
She is capped at 9 or 10, depending on how old the larva is when they started. Okay, so if that's 9 days, and she hatches at 16, you have a week. From where you see that, you have a week and she'll be hatching. She'll hatch and at the most. When you found that, it could be hatching tomorrow.
Right.
Or it could be hatching the next couple of minutes. You look at the end, oh, she's already chewing herself out. Let's watch this. It's great. So, yeah.
Well, if you have a hive that's superseded this time of year, would there necessarily be drone in the hive? Or
By the time, now, they correspond that too. They know, but unless they're at their last ditch effort, and that is true. In a couple of hives that were overwintered here, we don't have drones walking, but we have purple eyes. In other words, they have drones that are about ready to hatch. Purple eyes, when you pop the caps of their cell, that means they've got about 3 days and they're hatching. Because that's one of the last things that develop on a bee before they hatch, is the eyes and the wings. And then so right now we have drones that are about a week out, and then after a week, it takes them another week before their genitalia is developed enough to fly to the drone congregation area to mate. So right now in the Grand Valley, there is drones that are about 2 weeks out, is all.
so when that queen hatches out, will the bees take care of her until she's able to?
After she hatches, she has also a week before she can fly.
Mm,
It's about a week. And so what I'm saying is and then there is that about a 2 to 3 week period where she can still mate. Usually when she goes, it's about a week, but I've seen the queens extend even 2 weeks because there wasn't enough drones in the PCA. So what I'm saying, if you see that now, in your first inspection, I doubt that you will. But in the next week or two, in through March and the 1st of April, that's what I'm giving you this information, because into April, when you see this, see the queen all of a sudden went into laying mode. Man, she's been cranking out the eggs. And she can lay 3,000-4,000 eggs in a day if she has enough bees to cover and to start feeding those eggs and they become larvae. She can lay that many. And so she starts laying, but all of a sudden, she's at the end of her cycle. They recognize that, they know that, because they see that she's off. She's missing cells. She's laying on the side of the cell. And so they superseded her. When you see that happening, up until it's swarming time, leave it. That's the encouragement, because they know exactly what they're doing, and they normally won't supersede unless they know that there are drones available.
You have to protect the new queen from the old queen. Or will they just?
The old queen by now has been balled and killed
Oh,
on a supersedure. She's already gone.
oh.
Normally, she's got a few eggs left. They'll start drawing that out, and then they'll kill her. It's a kind of a vicious cycle. You know, the queen is royalty for that 2 years, 3 years. Can't do anything wrong. They feed her, they groom her, and then thanks for nothing at the end of her life. You know, you killed and throw it out the front door, you know?
Now, 36 hours before this hatches, all the worker bees will start chewing right here on the outside. And you'll get a ring right around here, and you'll see them on there chewing the wax. And about just a little bit up, like right there, you kind of see a little line there where that's where they'll start chewing. When that's gonna happen, you've got about 24 hours to get, if you're gonna do something else with that queen cell. That's it. I'm gonna have a queen in 24 hours probably.
Here is the different stages, and this is everything that you want to see, not just eggs, but you want to see all the stages of larvae and or cap pupa. So you have an egg, you have actually where it's just barely see this one, that one right there. That is just hatched. That is an egg that just hatched and become pupa. Here is one that is a little bit older than, I would say that's 3.5 days old. 3.5 or closer to 4. That's a little bit older than 4, maybe closer to 5 days old. Here's a 6-day-old, 5 or 6 day old larva. So when you see your different stages, that's a good thing. That you know that and see she's laying in the center, good looking brood pattern. You want to look for that. You want to look to see not just eggs and larvae, but also look at the pattern. She'll be on one frame, she'll be hitting every single cell that you wanted. That is a good laying queen instead of spotty. Like, oh, a little bit on this side, a little bit on that side. Well, 2 frames away and there's a little pattern there. She'll usually start on one, that frame, a good queen, and she'll do a mid-size laying pattern and then move to the back side of that same frame. Start laying there. This is also a good indication where she's at. If you're seeing eggs, you're seeing a frame with a lot of eggs, she's close. She's probably either on that frame, on the back side of that frame, or one of the frames next to it. Because that you see eggs, she's laying and she's been there. And this time of year, she won't be running to one side or the other unless you put way too much smoke in there. You can smoke a queen to the bottom outside if you put too much smoke down. And she'll immediately start running and hiding. So that is one indication. A little bit of smoke, settle them down enough, and start in on your inspection. So this is what you want to see. You want to see all stages of larvae. Here's the honeybee cycle. We talked about that. An egg of a worker or egg of a queen. 3-day-old is when they start that queen cell. The larva is up to 8.5 days. Capped cell, 7.5 right in there. And then 16 days when she emerges. A worker, it emerges 21 days. Drone emerges usually around 28. This is 24, but it's around 28. Okay. If you see some of this, take a picture and send it to me, please. You see anything there? 2 of these are EFB, European. This one here, European foul brood. It's hard to see. This is also European foul brood, and that one is chocolate brood. Chocolate brood's easy to fix. These two are not. So if you see anything along the line, see this one here, I blew this one up the biggest. So you see where that cell has a hole in it, it's pitted at the top, another hole, and then your brood is basically all dried out. And it's dark, really dark coat because it has travel stain. A sick bee will cause the brood, that frame of brood to be dark. It's not that light brown or even medium brown. It becomes like a dark brown. That's what we call travel stain. And travel stain is caused by sick bees because of the regurgitating and defecating in the hive. And it's pretty ugly. And so that's a good sign of that. Bees don't look healthy. They don't look shiny. They're not moving very well. And that is a good indication. Your bees made it all the way through winter, but now they have some serious issues that need to be addressed. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for, the other thing that you're looking for is signs of viruses. That is, and I might pull that up from another presentation. I didn't throw too many of those on here, but we talked about those viruses before. Deformed wing. Deformed wing is probably the biggest one that you'll see this time of year. And you see any deformed wing virus, deformed wing on those honeybees, again, that you need intervention right away. But 90% of the time, if you made it this far, bees are in good shape. However, know this, every time they cycle, you have increased the mite load 4 times. You have 4 times the mite load every cycle. Every 21 days, you're gonna have 4 times the mites. And this is the best time. We're gonna talk about how to knock down the mites this time of year, because it is really the best time. And then, of course, you want to find the queen. Yay, I found the queen. Now, if you've gone through all of the frames and you haven't found the queen yet, there is a certain amount of time that they will give you before they really start getting agitated. And they'll let you know when it's time. But I really want to see the queen. And a lot of people do that. However, if you're in that hive more than a half hour, that's way too much for 60-degree weather. Because what you're doing, you're chilling that lid open. All the brood now is getting killed, and you can kill all those brand new baby bees in the process, especially the larvae, the open larvae. Doesn't take much to chill them, and then you just lost a whole entire cycle. So this is a good looking pattern. See the color of that? A nice toasty brown. And you got a honey band up the top. And usually, oftentimes this time of year, you'll have right underneath the honey, there will be a band of pollen. What you normally see though is a frame right next to this one. To the outside of this one is the frame of bee bread. And that is the pollen they're bringing in. They'll put it right next to open brood most of the time. When you have a frame of open brood, the outside frame from there is bee bread, and that's a good sign. Yeah.
So you might have a full frame of bee bread right next to just,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
right, that was. Well, I
And
was
that's a good healthy beehive. They do that often, not just on the same frame. Because later on you'll find that honey band is gone, that pollen band is gone, and the whole thing is nothing but brood. But a frame next to it, or 2 frames away, is that bee bread, a whole frame of brood. And that's why in my nooks, I give you a frame of pollen for that reason, because that way they don't have to forage for anything. They already have that pollen right there in the nook, and they're feeding their offspring. So, any questions up till now?
Is there any way of looking at the brood and the cats, tell if your bees have been Africanized?
Africanized?
Yeah, if they've been mixed.
I have not known that to look just at the brood. I don't know if there's any genetic markers outside of they're just nasty. They're no fun. And they don't have to, and in every strain or subgenus of the Apis mellifera, there is, when you're talking about Italians, Carnolians, Russians, and the many more that are coming up, Buckfast, Saskatraz, and those that we're working with BSH. Those are the things that we're after. We have hot hives, and I call it a hot hive because that hive is just ornery, just mean. So there's two ways to deal with a hot hive. One is requeen. Just requeen that hive, but it takes a whole cycle. You got to deal with that for another month at least, till all those bees of that last queen's genetics are, and then all those old worker bees have to die off. So you're usually dealing with 2, even 3 months down the road for that hive to get nice again. The other way we deal with it, is we just shake it out. And then they beg their way back into another hive. We diversify, kill that queen. We don't want that in our outfit. So that's the 2 ways. A lot of people say, well, I only have a couple hives. So I'll take that first one and I'll just try to deal with it for that 2-3 months of that ornery hive. But I don't know if there's any markers.
I've never heard of any markers being able to look at it. As a matter of fact, you can't look at the bee until it's Africanized. You have to catch a certain amount of bees and then you have to measure their wing length. And it has to be a certain, because they all have naturally a little bit different length of wings, but it has to be a certain percent of them underneath of a certain wing length before you can say they're Africanized. So as far as just looking at one bee, you can't see they're Africanized. So I don't think you can see the brood either.
The reason I asked is last weekend, I was at a bird swap in Delta, and a lady was talking to me, and she had 9 hives. And she had a professional beekeeper come over and look at it, she's new at it. And he killed all but 2 of her hives, saying they were all Africanized. And I was like, how? I never heard of any way, except like you said,
Right.
it has to be done under a microscope and all
Right.
this, that you can just look at a hive inside it, except for being on the hive.
Yeah,
And there's so
even
many
then, you
more
wouldn't
reasons
be
for
able
it to
to
be
tell.
ornery.
yeah.
I mean, they could just have gotten a raccoon in them last night in their ornery.
Yeah,
So,
But you know, because you had one that was consistently,
yeah, we had one that was very high,
Right.
very high,
so
yeah,
you understand the hot hive.
right.
But for you to come in, for somebody to come in and say, yeah, I can tell this one's bad.
Yeah,
I work with guys, 5th generation beekeepers have been keeping bees since the 1800s. And no, that is something that is not ever
Yeah, 'cause she lived,
recognized.
2 miles west of Montrose. And I could not figure out how this time of the year, anybody could possibly
Right.
look into a hive.
well,
But
You're right.
He soaked her hives and killed them out,
wow.
all but 2.
Yeah, that's too bad.
And I tried to explain. to
The
her
other
the
thing that
same
I've
thing.
heard about Africanized bees in our area, and I've read this somewhere, I can't tell you where, that most of the time they're gonna die because they can't stand the cold weather. Most
That's
Africanized
true.
bees are just gonna die.
That's
Right.
true.
If they do live, the epigenetics, they will start manifesting the European honeybee traits
Regress.
because they'll regress. So I've been told in this area, we probably will never have Africanized bees.
Yeah.
Someone else?
Oh, I was just going back to the foul brood. Do you have to burn that hive then?
No, foul brood is treatable. American foul brood is not. European foul brood is treatable. I haven't seen American foul brood. I've talked to a beekeeper that runs into Dakotas during the summer, and he knows another beekeeper, another commercial beekeeper back east, Georgia area that ran into some American. But we haven't had American foul brood in decades, about 20 years. Haven't seen any American. That's a good thing because American foul brood, the only way you can treat it is torch the hive. But European, there is a number of treatments. The main thing is get the comb, get the dark comb, remove that from the hive. And we're going to talk about in next meeting, I'll bring some of that treatment that is used for European. It's been successful. University of Georgia started a study using camphor, tea tree, eucalyptus oil, and that mixture in vegetable oil. And very successful. It's with that camphor.
Do they spray it on them or?
No, a shop towel, blue shop towel.
Oh, okay.
And so that, and it's shown some very good promise on, other than that, there's heavy doses of antibiotics and some other things that I steer away from. Usually if we find any sign of that, we just pull those frames immediately out and toss them, burn pile, get rid of them, remove them away from any of the beehives so they don't even rob that, because this is bacterial. This is a bacterial issue. Someone else.
I was gonna say, that recipe, I used that, you gave me the recipe, I used it last fall. So far, so good, for how long.
Good.
I was a little over 6 miles away from an American foul brood outbreak with some hobbyists in Virginia. There, the state apiarist has a lot more power than they do here.
We don't have one.
We don't have one, basically. But anyway, they went, everybody within a 3-mile radius of that, they went and looked at all the hives in that 3-mile radius. One, and then it had spread to one other hive. So then they took that hive and went within a 3-mile radius. And they will come on your property, and inspect it. They have the right, you don't have to say whether they come on your property and inspect your hive. And if they find it, they confiscate it and they take care of it in Virginia in many ways. So I was just outside of that. I was like a 1/4 mile outside of that second 3-mile ring. So I never got noticed, but anyway. So it does happen every now and then. If you see that, something like that, you need to call somebody experienced quickly and let them look at it, because it does spread.
Yeah, yeah, that's any robbing bees will get into that. They'll bring it right back to you. So the next thing, we went through the hive and you found everything that you need to do. The next thing that you want to do is what we call swapping brood boxes. Your bees will be in this top box right now. Because during the winter, they went through their stores and they'll find them all in the top. They naturally want to go up, and they're starting to brood inside out. So you've got 2 or 3 frames of brood, maybe even 4. Tyler Tobias has 5. He had 5 frames of brood just last Saturday when we did an inspection there at the New Beekeepers Workshop. And that's good. And that was not one of his strong hives. He sent all his strong hives with me to California. So that was not one of it. So I would say those of you that overwintered, you got a strong hive, you might even have 6 or 7 frames of brood right now, which is really phenomenal. Whether, mild winter, so on and so forth, you kept them fed, mice were down. So what do you want to do? So they have a hard time wanting to go down. They don't want to go naturally. They want to go, why? The heat. The heat's up. So again, at bottom number, around 40 degrees, that overnight low, 40 degrees, when that hits, it's a good time to do swapping. And right now you're doing your hive inspection next week, or whatever that is, good way to do that. So what you're doing is you're taking this, where all the bees are in this top box. I know that's a good looking box. Brand new. Never mind. That's one we make, okay? And as with those of you that have ordered frames too, and we want them to go, we want them to be able to continue to go up, so you're going to manipulate the hive. So again, most of them are at the top. We want to cause them, again, the bottom one's empty. So you take that bottom one off, set it to the side. This top one here, full of bees, put that there. And then you can either put, if you have drawn comb, this is the empty one now because it was on the bottom, right? The top one now is on the bottom. Now, if you have frames of drawn comb, it's okay to go ahead and put this one right on top. That'll work great because it's drawn comb, and they'll move right up. If that's the qualifier, if you have at least 5 frames of brood. 4 is probably not enough, but 5, if you have 5 frames of brood in that top box, one thing that you can do to encourage them to go up is take those 2 frames of brood and put them in the top box. Where do you want to put it? Right in the middle, okay? Right in the center. And then these are empty because this was the bottom and they're empty. I want to push these frames together. Okay? You don't want to take those empties and set them right into the nest. You want to push them all together, take those 2 empties, put them on the outside. You follow me? That is really important. You can interrupt that brood nest by dropping cold frames, especially if they're not drawn. For the new beekeepers, all you have is blanks, right? You don't have drawn comb yet. Don't put drawn comb in the center of your beehive. What happens is you have separated, you've disrupted the flow and how they work that brood nest. They're carrying resources to that brood, feeding that brood. And if you set a blank frame in the middle of that, but not only have you interrupted their flow, but there's nothing they can do except draw this out to be even able to use it. Many times they'll abandon the brood comb. They'll abandon it and move to one side or the other. So if you have 2 more frames, 2 frames of brood, and he's going to set a blank in between them, you have just disrupted the flow and also set them back. And you don't want to set them back this time of year. You want them to keep going forward. So let's say, okay, I have, and we'll talk about introduction of a nuke next week and how to do that. Basically, you want that nuke to be in the center and any blank frames on the outside. That is so important. Again, I had 5 frames of brood. I'm going to take 2 of those. I'll put it up here on top, and then I'll set this bottom one has now become the top box. Where are all my bees now? The bees are down here, except for just 2 frames of up the top. Okay. I'm hoping that there I got a lot of blank stares. Like I have no idea what you did and why you did that. Okay. Yep.
If you want to exchange your old frames out because you got old foam on and stuff, is that, go ahead and put blankets on the side and the 2 frames on the top, or?
Yeah, wherever your old frames are, you want to exchange it. That's true. What you want to do is always try to start new frames on the outside of brood nest. There is a little trick later on in a heavy flow. You can draw a lot of comb in a hurry, but we'll talk about that next month. This is just, I want this just to stay with you on your inspections. So this is what you're doing on your inspection this time of year. I don't want to get ahead of you and then you're thinking about, well, I could do this and do that. And that's for months ahead, especially those of you that are, this is like the first overwinter and you got bees that are alive and okay, it's great. So that's really important right there. Keep that brood nest together as best you can. Yeah.
What if I've got some hives that are just heavy. I haven't really gotten into them yet to look at them carefully. But what if they've been backfilled?
And that's a good question. If they overwintered, they didn't use much. They're gonna need room to expand
Okay.
that brood nest. So they'll need empty frames. So if you have an empty frame that's ready to go, drawn comb, put it to the side, again, not in the middle, to the side of where she's laying.
So if
And give her
it's
room, but
backfilled, just go ahead and remove that filled
Yeah,
frame.
just swap them out.
Swap them out.
Yeah.
But, okay,
Oftentimes, that old honeycomb, that old honey frame has been crystallized this time of year. And they would much rather utilize the nectar, and so they won't even go to that crystallized frame. So how do you get crystallized honey out of a frame? Anybody know? Okay, scrape it off,
I don't
that,
think
that
you- I
does
don't-
work, but
I
that's
don't
not the
think-
best, yeah. What's that?
Don't you get it, let it get warmer?
Okay, it's really hard. That temperature for that crystallized honey to become emulsified is real close to that same temperature that wax melts. So it works, but then you got a pile of honey and wax. And okay, so that's,
So the
that-
answer is you don't.
there, it's real, it is doable, it's real close, and it depends on how old your wax is. This one here would melt with the honey. It's too new. The older comb, you have a little bit more of a temperature, but what I've found is, it's really too close. But there's a really good way to get rid of all that crystallized honey. It's called robbing it out. You let them rob it. So you take that old honeycomb and you set it outside. What I do is right on the side like that. Or somewhere's close. And those, once they find that, they'll just start, they kind of destroy the comb that way because they don't think it's theirs. Even though it is theirs, it's out of there, but it's a whole lot better than scraping it. And you will end up with a frame that's been robbed out and that comb is still good. But as long as it's in their hive, they won't do that. Outside the hive, fair game. Once they find that, do a waggle dance, it's on like Donkey Kong. And they'll just strip that, okay?
They won't do it inside the hive because they look at it as emergency. If we get down to nothing, we can eat this if we have to.
It's part of their stores.
Yeah.
Alright, so we probably shouldn't.
I say that all the
That's the other one,
time.
let 'em here, hold my beer.
So last fall, when you were coaching us about trying to leave them 80 pounds, right? We were
Yeah.
trying to figure all that out. So we went ahead and put a third box of honey on top and
Okay.
left them honey to be able to eat. But we're feeling like they didn't take very much of that this year.
No.
Right? And so that's crystallized now, just like what she was talking about, but we just have a whole box.
Okay, the whole box, I'll set that whole box on its side like that,
Okay.
and they'll rob that whole box out. They rob it much easier on its side where it's open both ends. Don't leave it out overnight or the mice will have a heyday. Or whatever critter will come along. But during the day, a warm day, set it out on its side like that, and they'll rob it. Especially if it's close.
Yeah.
You know, the closer it is, I mean, a couple feet away, and they'll just hit that once they find out, especially on days that you just had a bunch of cold weather and all the nectar shut off. There are some flowering trees that the temperature doesn't affect them, but a lot of the flowers, one cold hit and the pollen's still there, but the nectar's done. It shuts the nectar off completely for that flower. A flowering tree has the blossom's a little more hardier, so it'll take cold and the nectar will still come back on that flower. But most of especially the ground flowers, one good cold night that drops down in the 30s, below that 40s, like 38, 39, doesn't kill the flower, but shuts off the nectar. Pollen's still there. So on that, what I'm saying is a good cold night, the next day, they'll rob the snot out of that. Depends on the strength of the hive, but a good strong colony, 2 or 3 days, gone. That's a good question. So anyway, that's one way to get rid of crystallized honey, because if it's been in there the whole time, chances are it's crystallized this time of year. Yeah.
Does it help them cap that a little bit?
Do what?
They would all the quicker if they cap it a little bit?
If I do what? Uncap it? Yeah, here's what I found. If honey that's flowing in a puddle isn't readily as picked up as honey that's still in the comb, and they do it. But I mean, we feed honey in a tote with straw in it. And if I have some leftover honey or some honey that ended up, spilling on the floor or whatever, we'll throw that in a tote with some straw so they don't drown, and they'll rob that. But Normally, uncapped, it runs and it's a mess, so. But yeah, I'd imagine they'd hit that too, but I don't think it's any faster. Because they can only take so much at a time. And it doesn't take them but a second to uncap it. I mean, you'll be surprised. And there'll be a whole bunch of cappings at the bottom of this and out the front and out the back when you do it like this, or just that one frame. And don't leave the frame flat on a surface. Don't leave it flat on the ground. Lean it up against something. And most of the time it's best if it's leaned this way. So that, and then they'll get to both sides. You have questions?
When should you take quilt boxes out? Because I know you haven't talked about that at all.
Take what? Quilt boxes? That bottom number is what the key is on, if you got quilt boxes. I haven't used them, you use quilt
I've
boxes
never
on
used
him.
quilt boxes.
It's Tyler is not here, and he's does a lot of that. I would pull them the same time as you pull your insulation. What a quilt box does, it removes moisture. And right now they need the moisture. They need that water. I mean, they're flying for water, but again, anything more that they have to heat is detrimental. So if you have heat escaping anywhere, then they have to produce more heat to compensate.
You got a question over here?
Should we still be feeding, or is there enough going on now that we don't need to be as concerned about that?
Yes. You know, when this is how you know when you don't have to feed anymore, is they don't take it. When they quit taking the feed that you put out, that's how you know that they don't need it. So if you're still feeding, and those of you, when you get into it, and this first hive inspection, that is also a good point, is if they're too light. There's enough coming in now that usually sustains them, and there's, of course, today and the next couple of days it's gonna be rainy, and so they're gonna go through their stores. They're gonna go through whatever they brought in, especially if they've been building up. You got 5-6 frames of brood and 25,000 bees. They'll go through a lot of food in a hurry. So when you're checking them, if they're light, go ahead and feed them. And there's different ways to feed. We talked about frame feeders, we talked about entrance feeders, we talked about separate feeders, hive top feeders, a number of different feeders. All of them have pros, all of them have cons. Just find the one that you like, the one you want to use, and throw some food at them. This time of year, I would still do a little heavy, maybe 1.5 to 1 instead of 2 to 1, but not yet 1 to 1 because it is a little bit cold. 1.5 is fine. That still replicates that nectar because they're bringing nectar in and they're still having to dehydrate the nectar that's coming in. So it's a little heavier. Now's a good time an excellent time to give them the supplements. There's one supplement called Complete. It does have Nosevit in it, and that is to help them with the springtime nosemia. This is a little bit later than what you should see any kind of gut issues when it comes to nosemia, or especially Nosema ceranae. It's a little bit late in the season. You usually see that a little bit earlier, but if the gut issues, that'll take care of it. Also, it has a lot of amino acids. There's a rocket fuel out there now, and it's the Super DFM, and that is microbiome that helps the bee's gut. And that is a great supplement. And I think they make it in a smaller, you said you just picked some up?
Yeah, they make it in a 10 servings for 10 hives, or 100, or then you can get great big with it.
Yeah, we buy it by the 5-gallon bucket. So
The 100, I just bought the 100 treatments and it was $89, I think.
Okay. And it's called Super DFM.
And the word super and then in capitals, DFN.
And I think all the big stores, all the big boys selling
I know
Better
Man
Bee,
Lake
Man
and
Lake,
Dayan do, because I compared prices and Man Lake had a better price on it.
Jason, when you said 1.5 to 1, is that sugar to water or water to sugar?
Sugar, 1.5 sugar to 1 water.
Got it, thanks.
You know, 1.5 water to 1 sugar is really runny. And that's, but, and I'm just getting, a lot of people this time of year will just do the 2 to 1 as well, the heavier. Because it's, if it is cold, that you'll not do them any favors because you just put an ice cube in their hive, you know? So that if it gets down to freezing in that, because that sugar water, it won't freeze hard, but it'll crystallize, it'll freeze it where it's like a heavy syrup, and it's harder for them to utilize something that cold. In fact, when we're feeding, we make sure it's heated. We feed them hot syrup, not hot where it's gonna hurt them, but we warm it up. We put a heater in that tank and they get it warm, and that helps them. They utilize it real quick.
So I've been doing the raw sugar, not the mix. Is that still okay, or should we be moving to one that's?
Raw sugar this time of year, they probably won't use it as, because it is too hard to emulsify it. For them to break it down. And see, the reason why we don't feed syrup during the winter is just it's too hard on them. But this time of year, the syrup is good. Okay, instead of raw sugar. And this, also raw sugar can give them gut issues. I mean, it's not as prevalent as some other things, but the syrup is, they readily take that much easier. So if you want to hit this, the two, V-check and there's two things that,
So this bcheck.org is the website, and it's a place where you can register your hive locations. And what they're trying to do is to get pesticide applicators to get on here as well so that they can notify you that they're going to be in your area when they're spraying. I've been contacted a couple of times by like the Lathy Spray and a couple other ones that said, hey, we're going to be within a half a mile of your house. It's at least a way for us to communicate with them, so hopefully we can help stop some of the issues. I mean, depending on what you've got, you might be able to cover your bees, you might be able to do something. In Jason's case is like, yep, great, they're there. I'm gonna have bees tomorrow, you know, but it's a start. There's, I mean, it's all voluntary, there's nothing else, but it's a good place that at least we can start getting that conversation to happen and hopefully have some of those, get the notifications, so.
We did it and the mosquito district contacted us.
yeah, they're good about that. I really appreciate the mosquito district there. And if we can get the spray companies, those of you that are in town of, any of the metropolitan areas or the Palisade, Fruta, or Grand Junction in the city limits there, then this probably is not going to be as advantageous to those of you that live in the rural areas, especially outside of Fruta, Mac, and Loma areas, or in Palisade rural. But most of the spray issues that affect the bees is the crop dusters. And so primarily the spray planes that are hitting the weevils. So have sign up for this. The other one, Doug, is.
And so then this is an app you can download for your phone. It's called Inspect Next. It basically links in with weather services and pulls a forecast, and it has some default things in there for temperatures and stuff, but it'll give you an indication if you want to look out there. What's the weather gonna be like? When's a good time to inspect my hive? It'll say, this is a good day. Might be a little windy, be a little cold. It has default values based in there, but if you think, hey, I don't want to check my hive at that, you can customize it yourself. And it's, that way, if you're trying to make plans, you're busy like a lot of us are, and then you look and think, well, I have a little bit of time today, maybe do I check, or, I'll have some time like next week. And it's about a week out, maybe this weekend, you can look and then go, well, no, next week is gonna be really bad. I probably should take the time to do it today. So it's just a helpful little tool. You can download it off of either one of those. And go from there. So We were just trying to come up with some technological stuff to help you do the beekeeping stuff.
We're good. Any questions? Any answers?
He was in fact, for our treatment.
Thank you. That's what we're.
And we would like to
We
know
have,
about those cow things.
okay,
They're so easy to use.
the oxalic acid extended, okay. I'm going to have, for those of you who would like to have some for your own. Okay, I'm gonna bring some next, at the next meeting. And I'll have a demonstration on how to put them together, and then I'll have enough for each of you to do one. Okay, those of you that have 10 hives, well, I'll show you how to do it, and then I'll give you one for a one hive, because the cost is cheaper than other things, but it gets up there after a while.
So you're saying it's just one?
So the club, as you know, voted to purchase a oxalic acid vaporizer. It's OxVap, and I do have instructions that I include. I donated the battery and the charger. Here is also donated a mask and some goggles, okay, and oxalic acid. So you're ready to go whenever you want to check this out. Here's, go over real quick how this works. Here's the vaporizer. You take your battery, make sure that on the front, the battery has a little button you hit, and it'll give you how many bars. You want to start with full bars on that, full bars. And it just clicks in the battery right in the front. And you push it in till it clicks. You'll know immediately it'll start heating up. Okay, it'll go right to that. 230 is where you're going. Right now it's at 18. And you want to make sure it goes all the way to that 230 before you start. Okay. Here's the plunger. It has 4 settings. You want to leave it on number 4. Okay, it already comes, it's set at number 4. How do you move it? You move it like that. You push in, and you can, and what it does is it regulates how much oxalic acid. But we want to be at 4 grams. And there's numbers on the top and then a red marker on the side. So you want to be at 4 grams. I have Kool-Aid. This is bee Kool-Aid, okay? And it's basically, this is oxalic acid, okay? Yep. And when you get it on you, wash it off. There's a couple things that you want, and I didn't include that, is baking soda. Before you start this, get some baking soda and water. Baking soda neutralizes oxalic acid. Oxalic acid is already found naturally in a lot of vegetables, even in honey. So you'll take this plunger, you push it into the oxalic acid enough times to where it fills the end, okay? At that point, you'll take this plunger. You don't want to be vaporized, do you? No. Okay. You put that with that oxalic acid into the top. We're only at 107 now, but we gotta wait. And what you want to do, the instructions say you can drill, I think 7/16 or 7/16 hole quarter inch in the back side, but you want to do it real low. You don't want to do it in the middle because you're going to hit a frame. So it gives you very specific instructions to where. I just go in the front door. Okay, and that nozzle right there, slide that into the front door. And you can get towels to put on each side of it to keep. Now, if you already have a frame or an entrance reducer, just go where the hole is, you set that there, and then you just when you're ready to go, when it gets to 230, all you have to do is just pop that a couple times. And that'll immediately release that acid vapor. Make sure you have that vaporite, the gas mask on, that and goggles, and it'll go all through the hive. You want to leave that for about 7-8 minutes at least, until all the acid is gone out. You can tell because it quits coming out. That's just heat that's coming off of that.
Jason, do you wanna do this when your workers are still in the hive?
No, your major varroa force is gonna be in the nest. You can do it, if you do it before they're all gone, before like the middle of the day. And some people say it's best you saturate the whole entire workforce because those varroa will hop on a worker and take off if there's a high mite load. But I said no, because you want to make sure that the cluster has broken. If they're clustered up because of the cold, because if it's before 50 degrees, that vapor won't penetrate the inside of that cluster or get into the nest. So we always wait till at least that it's warmed up above that 50 degrees this time of year. And that way the cluster's broken, that vaporization will penetrate throughout the whole entire colony. Okay.
How much is that?
It was about $500.
$550, and then you got the batteries, which are $70 a piece.
Well, no, this battery, I just picked another one up today. That's why I decided I'll donate it. The battery is $170
You get
with the charger.
With the charger.
If
So-
you happen to have excess basic current, you can get one with an AC current.
Yeah,
I
you can
just bought
buy
one
one of
today.
these with 110.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a good time to hit it with, before it would have been better a month ago, before there was a lot of brood. This will get all the phoretic mites. Oxalic acid vapor does not penetrate encapsulated mites. In other words, it does not penetrate the comb. But all the phoretic mites, loose mites, kills them almost instantly. So anyway.
Who stores that?
What's that?
Who stores it?
Where's it gonna be?
This will be, either I'll have it or Doug will have it. They'll be here in town. And we're putting together well, that smells so good. Yeah, don't breathe that. We're putting together a sign up or a check out. And we were discussing what, if we wanted to do a deposit with that, whether you just give us a credit card number or a check for $100. I mean, this altogether.
You got $800
We got,
in that
it's close to $900 with the mask and everything. So with the toolbox. So anyway, and we haven't really decided. I mean, some of you have a number of hives and you can't get to it. We have some bugs to work out there of how we're going to, the process of all that, but it's available tonight. So you'll be the first one, you'll be the guinea pig to know what we need to do when you do something wrong.
Where do you get your oxalic acid?
Huh?
Where do you get your oxalic?
I get my oxalic acid on Amazon and I buy it by the 5-gallon bucket.
Or True Value.
True Value is where I get mine.
Oh, so you used to get the.
You can get it, but I have enough in there to do the whole entire club.
You get, what's it called?
It's called wood
Wood
bleach.
bleach.
Wood bleach.
Wood
okay.
bleach. And you get True Value
Yeah.
and they'll get the little buckets
Man Lake tells you you're not supposed to use that, you're supposed to use the pure stuff.
because they want you to buy it from them.
Well,
Okay.
let me tell you this, the stuff you buy at Ace is exactly that stuff. What they're talking about is one is labeled as a pesticide, one is labeled as wood bleach. You're
Okay.
not allowed to use other things as pesticides, it's
Yeah.
off-label use. And
Okay.
so technically it is illegal.
I
but
swear to
it is
get
a
it.
Yeah.
different
And
thing.
they will say on that, on the container, if it's 90% plus, and what you get from Man Lake is Same thing, 90% or 90, they say 98%, but
Yes.
it is the same exact. What I found, okay. Now the extended, if you want to start before we do next week, extended oxalic sponges, we found really successful. I'm extremely pleased. We went into our almond pollination with mite washes of 1 or 2 or none. I think we had maybe a couple hives out of 1,000 that were maybe 4s and 5s, and that was the anomaly, most of them across the board. And that we attribute that not to Amitraz, we quit using Amitraz altogether, to oxalic the extended oxalic sponges. And that, if you're wanting to know more about that, then the best place to find that information online at scientificbeekeeping.com. The man's name is Randy Oliver. He's an entomologist.
Is it .com or .org?
.org. Scientificbeekeeping.org.
I've been using this dated procedure where you do 3 treatments 1 week apart. That what you
A
do?
vapor or what?
Oh, yeah, vapor.
Vaporization?
Yeah.
To be able to successfully kill mites with vaporization when you have a mite load encapsulated, why don't you do the math? And you can do this on your own. You understand what you need to do. So again, we talked about the life cycle of the bee. It's 21 days, 28 for drones, and the mite prefers the drone. So how often does that, we wish that they would all be hatching at the same time, but they're hatching some every day. But the new egg is only being moved into that larvae stage before it gets to the pupa stage every 3 days. On the 4th day, it becomes a pupa. So the understanding is you need to do that every 3 days for 28 days. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it is a long, arduous process of just vaporization. However, it will kill all the phoretic mites. So anything that's not encapsulated will kill. Now that's where the oxalic sponges come into play, is because you can leave them in there with honey supers. And they will hold the moisture for 3 months, 4 months.
I thought when you vaporized, you've still got, for 2 or 3 days, you've got oxalic out there that they're walking on.
They thought that those crystals last. They found that it's basically dissipated. 90% are gone in 2 days.
Okay.
And so that's the 3rd day. That's what we said, that 3rd day.
Yeah.
They hit it again, because there is the residue, but for the most part, they're looking at 2 days of, and really it's about 18 hours is all where the heaviest amount.
So you're still getting the flying bees,
Yeah.
even if they're not in there.
Yeah. But what you're doing is that oxalic acid is hitting the mite on the bee itself. So after that amount of time for that mite to be affected, that bee has to come in to contact with some oxalic acid somewhere else in the hive, which usually doesn't happen. That's why it hits them right now, and it'll that 4 grams, and that's what it's on number 4 grams will hit that double deep.
Yeah.
It'll saturate 2 deeps and completely take care of it. And it'll knock down your mite load right now, boom. So whatever is not encapsulated, all the phoretic mites. Anything?
Nope.
But you,
You have a procedure for like cleaning that when you're done with it?
that is along the lines of, don't water, it's water soluble, so you can put, if you wanted, that when it comes back to us, we'll make sure it's in operation and clean it, but there is, if you have problems with it getting plugged, then there is, take some, don't hold it under the faucet, but take water in a cup and warm water and pour it in. When this is not hot, wait for it to cool down, take the battery out and wait for it to cool down. And then you can pour some water in the chamber, the heat chamber, and it will break down that. And if there's any problems, just call one of us and we'll walk you through any issues. Okay?
And how many pies can you treat with one battery charge? Kind of.
That is a great question. I'm not sure with this one. I got the Laurel Bees one, because I thought, man, that was gonna be a game changer for me. And I got through 3-4 hives and the battery was done. So I had to charge, so, I got a fistful of batteries, so, it was the only one, but again, this one here, I think is a little bit easier on batteries, is what I've been told. That's why we went with this one, the ProVat, instead of the Laura Bees, because Laura Bees eats batteries, and this one's a little bit easier on them.
I used one last year, it was neither one of those brand names, I can't remember what brand name, but I had a 6 amp battery and it went through 18 hives for it.
Again, there is instructions, so please, if you're gonna check it out, please read the instructions, follow the instructions. Again, any questions, you got our numbers, please call, and we'll walk you through it. So if you're interested in that and you wanna check that out. I think Doug's got the sign-up sheet.
I'm still working on it. I haven't actually got it made up yet. We'll just do it on, we'll just write it down if.
Yeah, we'll
if it
just
goes
write,
out tonight.
down your information. So anybody want to check that out right now? Okay, right here. Okay, first hand up. And then who is it? Who's second? Back there. Okay, so I'll have you come talk to G when you're done and she can send it on to you. Okay.
So then, one other thing, don't forget that the box dipping is coming up here on April 6th out at the church.
Clifton Assembly of God, 258 Fifth Street in Clifton, box dipping, a buck a piece.
Swap
And swap meet. So if you got something you want to sell, if you have any woodenware that's in fairly decent shape, the veterans, the Hives to Heroes really could use some equipment. Okay, we have about a dozen veterans, and a number of them are combat veterans. And so a couple of them brain injury, and we're setting them up. And way Hives to Heroes works is we give them equipment and the bees. The only stipulation is if they ever decide they don't want to do beekeeping, they give it back to Hives to Heroes. And so if you have any equipment, please come talk to me. We need some help there. Langstroth, 10-frame Langstroth equipment is what we're using. So bottom boards, lids, inner covers, frames, boxes, whatever. Yep.
Do you want anything horizontal lines?
No,
Okay.
no, it's just, we want to keep this just as simple and interchangeable. So if they have a problem, I can go to their house and whatever's on my truck, I can fix it. That's why we're there. Yep.
Yeah, one of the local beekeepers here is passed away, and his wife has equipment. She has about 20 hives with bees in them. And they're selling other hives, it's like real nice equipment, and they're probably very new. And if anyone would like to help them out, his wife can't handle, the bee situation, and they sell what's remaining, hopefully get a good deal out of it. And I can give you his number, Forrest Hoskins.
Say that again real loud. What's his name?
Forrest Hoskins, and his number is 970-201-4132.
One more time, the number one more time.
970-201-4132. And you help out the family there and help her take care of it. And she needs to, she can handle a piece of it. Even,
Thank you. That's great.
and when anyone's looking for equipment, I think they've got 20-some hives and bees ready to go.
They live here in Grand Junction, or? Where does she live?
I'm not sure, somewhere in the valley here, I'm not sure.
Okay.
You can call Forrest.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, then the other thing is just don't forget the Q&A meeting 2 weeks Zoom. If you guys have any questions. I'm usually hosting that. Hopefully I can get some other people on there, so it's not just listening to me all the time.
Somebody brought this, it's really cool.
Yeah. One of the gentlemen in the back said he brought it. There's also some woodware back there for Hives of Heroes that he brought, and
Awesome.
he donated, so. This is what they, of course, used to use, skiffs. You can't put bees in them in the United States, but, they're actually illegal. But if you want to come up and see how they used to keep bees way back in ancient Egypt, this is what they used to put them in.
Why are they illegal? Thank you.
Because you have to be able to remove the frames to look at them to inspect for diseases. They build comb in this right in the straw and you can't get it out. I wouldn't want to do it anyway because you have to destroy the hive to harvest the honey anyway, so.
They don't do that in Europe, so.
It's still in some countries, but most countries now have gotten where you have to be able to inspect.
I got to sign up if you still haven't got a note or you want a note. There it is.
Jason, do you want payment now or at time?
If you buy, next meeting in April, it's fine.
Next meeting's fine?
Yep.
What's the delivery, do you know yet?
What's that?
Do you know delivery for that yet?
Last week in April.